James and Ben back here for Odds Checker previewing Saturday's UFC Vegas 58 event. That's right, back-to-back events in Vegas, although this time this is going to be at the Apex for UFC Vegas 58, like I just mentioned there. Really good main event here between Rafael dos Anjos and Rafael Fiziev, the battle of the Rafaels. But we're going to start first, like we usually do, on the main card. New fight on the main card, actually. There was a canceled fight, so now we get, opening up the main card, Michael Johnson taking on Jamie Malarkey. And right now the odds makers have Jamie Malarkey as a moderate favorite at minus 240. The comeback on Johnson plus 200. Ben, which way are you going in this one?
Yeah, I think the line is telling here. Michael Johnson, he's a legend. He's been in the UFC for a long time, but I mean, he's fading. He's 3-9 in his last 12 fights before that win over Alan Patrick, which kind of felt like a gimme to me. I mean, they gave him this guy after he'd been fighting, some of the best. They give him that fight to kind of say, here's a knockout. Because I mean, if you lose this, we're gonna have to cut you. Basically, that's what it felt like to me. So it felt almost like a gimme, and I think this is going to be a much harder fight for Michael Johnson. But this is a big test for Jamie Malarkey too. So I think that line being minus 240 against a legend like Michael Johnson is kind of telling to me, because I think Jamie Malarkey, he's a good young fighter, and I'm not like super high on him, but I do think this is a fight that he can win. He's got some solid technique, and I think this is going to be that fight to kind of get that experience for him. But there's a lot of juice on this main card, so I think we're going to have to take a lot of parlays maybe this week, especially on this main card. There's a lot of juice. So I'm not sure if I'm super comfortable taking him straight up, but I would parlay Jamie Malarkey. I think he can push Michael Johnson up against the fence, maybe make it a grappling fight. Maybe that's his path to victory, because he's a smart fighter. So I think he can get this one done, maybe parlay it with something else.
So for the audience at home, finally, we're going to switch some things up. Usually Ben and I agree on everything to start off the show. I'm going the other way on this one. To me, it all comes down to value here. I think this line is way too inflated here. Michael Johnson at plus 200. I think you're getting some good value here for a variety of reasons. So we talked about the experience, the level of opposition here. You talked about the losing streak there for Michael Johnson. And yes, I agree. It looked like he was going to get cut, but you look at some of those losses here. Josh Emmett, who might be fighting for the title next against Volkanovski. Stevie Ray probably would have liked that one back. The Thiago Moises fight, he won that first round and then made a mistake and got submitted in the second round, but he looked good in that one. Clay Guida would have liked that one back too. I agree, but I just think this is a case of a guy that, again, is fighting really good opposition here. Jamie Malarkey's last couple wins are against a lot of guys that aren't even in the UFC anymore. If you look at it here, Devontae Smith, Worthy, they're out of here. They're not even on the roster right now. And I know we saw Jalen Turner look really good last week. Obviously, a good win over the Brad Riddell, but Jalen knocked him out. Like, that's one thing that I kind of look at here is that I think Malarkey's only path to victory here really is by knockout. And you look at Michael Johnson, the last time he was knocked out was against Josh Emmett in a weight class at 145, where he's more susceptible to the knockout because he's taking more damage here. I like the fact that Johnson's back at Killcliff MMA, which used to be called Sanford. It literally got changed this week, just in case people are following along here. But you're getting Michael Johnson at plus 200. Again, I know the age and even the fact that Malarkey's a little bit bigger here is a little bit worrisome, but you're getting him at plus 200. I like Johnson here for the pick. And I also like him to get the upset here as well from a betting perspective. I think this is a classic case of a guy that's being a little bit overinflated in Malarkey and a guy in Johnson who I think has found his footing. And I like the fact that he's back at Killcliff. I think that's why we saw him look so good in his last fight. I know Alan Patrick's maybe not, the best win there, but I can't ignore the value here for Michael Johnson. So I'm going with the menace to get my pick an underdog here to start things off on this show. So your thoughts on that? Yeah, no, I'm kind of looking at
me over here. I'm like, maybe I should switch.
Well, no, I'm just saying because what I look at is the level of opposition here. Like, again, Malarkey, as good as he's looked, the last two wins he's had are against guys that were cut from the UFC, and that could maybe he really is that good. But I just think if you look, and let's not forget either, and I know maybe if they rematch wouldn't be the same result, but this is one of the few guys that has a knockout win over Dustin Poirier too. Like, this is a guy that always seems to surprise at the right moment. And I think this is a fight where he can do it. So I'm going Michael Johnson. Does he knock him out? Maybe, but I just more likely just take him at plus 200. To me, there's some serious value there on the menace. So that's my thoughts on the first fight of the night. Okay, let's move along here. Jared Bandera, Chase Sherman, a fight that I'm kind of surprised is even getting made here because both guys have on some serious losing streaks here. And right now the odds have Jared Bandera as a slight favorite at minus 180. The comeback on Chase Sherman plus 155. What are your thoughts on this fight? And also the fact that it's on the main card.
This is just, this is an ugly fight. You can't really put it any other way. Bandera 1-4 over in the UFC. Chase Sherman actually, he was out of the UFC for a while, but he's 3-9. I feel like the only reason he came back is because they needed that short notice opponent. for Alexander Romanov, and then he came out and he was just absolutely dominated, got submitted right away. So I mean, pretty much what everyone expected. I think what was Romanov, like minus 1,500 in that fight or something?
Yeah.
He was some crazy high favorite. And that pretty much explains all you really need to know for this fight. But what I will say about Chase Sherman, he has a lot of volume. You know, he comes out firing. So, I mean, if Bandera was smart and he actually grappled in this fight, maybe I think he might be the better grappler. I don't know if he's the better striker, probably not. But just sheer volume-wise, if it stays on the feet, I expect Sherman to knock him out quickly. But, I mean, for that reason, sure, I'll take a stab at Chase Sherman just because he's the underdog. And I think he has a little bit more fight in him, especially in that first round. He's more live for that knockout. So in a fight as ugly as this one, I think I just have to take the underdog, but I probably won't be betting this fight at all. Probably will stay far away from this one, but just pick-wise, I'll take Chase Sherman.
There's no way I can make a bet on this fight. And I like both. I know both guys very well. I've interviewed them both for years. I just don't know if they're UFC caliber at this point. Let's look at their last couple fights. I mean, Sherman, you know, I remember when he beat Ike Villanueva, you thought maybe he's turned a corner here. I know he got another job outside of MMA, so I know financially wasn't reliant as much on, you know, on his fight career here. But you look at the losses. Arlovsky, not a bad loss. Parker Porter probably would have liked that one back. But Jake Collier, getting submitted by Jake Collier in the first round, I just, that's not a good loss on the resume. And of course, he lost to Romanov as well. Romanov's sort of the future here, but this is actually his third stint in the UFC over the last couple of years. So, I mean, this is do or die for Chase Sherman. 4 straight losses. That's what I mean why I was surprised this fight was made, because I know that obviously Chase did the UFC a solid by coming in and fighting Romanov, a guy that nobody wanted to fight. But I just don't know where he's at right now. I just cannot bet on Chase Sherman. I cannot pick Chase Sherman here because of the inconsistency. Like, again, if he had a more competitive fight with Collier, maybe a more competitive fight with Parker Porter, I'd feel a little bit better. But I just, from what we're seeing, I'm just not seeing a lot of improvements. Now, on the flip side, Jared Bandera, same sort of thing. He's had that one good fight with Justin Taffa, also got finished by Romanov in the second round as opposed to the first, also lost to Arlovsky. It was a split, should have been a unanimous. Arlovsky clearly won that fight. And then Alexei Oleinik. Like, don't get me wrong, Alexei Oleinik probably is the best ground game in the heavyweight division, but he's also 42. How do you lose to a guy like Alexei Oleinik at this stage in your career? Again, there's just no confidence on either side. If I have to pick, because that's what this is, a pick show, I will take Bandera just because he's a little bit younger, and he actually had a better showing against Romanov than Chase Sherman did. So that's the only reason I'm picking him. But trust me, stay far, far away from this fight. Even in a fight like this, maybe you look at the inside the distance, fight doesn't go the distance prop or something along those lines. But I don't even trust that because both these guys have been finished. Both these guys have gone the distance their last couple fights. This is just a total pass for me. And I just think, I don't know how anyone can feel confident on either side with the inconsistencies on both. So the pick's going to be Bandera, but absolutely no bet for me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep it going here. Sadner Nurmagomedov, Douglas Silva de Andrade, really solid fight here in the bantamweight division. And right now you can see Nurmagomedov minus 250 favorite, the comeback on Andrade plus 200. Which way are you going on this one, Ben?
We got another Nurmagomedov cousin, I believe. And we saw Umar, that decisive decision victory. But I mean, Saeed's not really the same fighter.
I know.
From what you see. He fights differently. You know, he's a little bit crazier. He's not quite as calculated to me. So I'm not as high on him. Obviously, he has those 2 losses. Umar's still undefeated. But I'm not as high on him. He's still a good fighter. He's a quick fighter. Andrade, he's a beast. I mean, his 3 losses, most recent losses in the UFC, Rob Font, Piotr Jan, Leron Murphy, who's still undefeated. I mean, he has solid losses. He has that win over Chito Vera, which is a good win in my eyes. That was a decision victory. So, you know, he's had those solid outings. And even like last time, he was plus 190 underdog against Sergey Morozov. He subbed him in the second round, I believe. So, I mean, he's looked solid at times, and his losses are against good opponents. So I do think this might be a good spot to back him, plus 210. But Saeed's, I think if this stays on the feet and he's just going to get a little bit outclassed, maybe Andrade on the feet. But like I said, it's kind of hard to read him, in my opinion, Andrade, just because of how he's looked so solid against as an underdog and his last time out. But I don't know. This one's kind of hard for me, but I will take plus 210 on Andrade just because he's fought the better opponents. He has the better resume. And Saeed, this is going to be a little bit of a test for him. So I'll take plus 210.
And I completely agree here. I literally talked about this on Monday where I said, I think Andrade, he's 37. You think, is there going to be a decline? It really hasn't looked that way. That win over Morozov was really good. You look at the amount of guys he's fought, the level of opposition, like you mentioned there, just a lot. Like he's been in the UFC for a long time, and his losses are against, like I said, Font, Jan, Murphy. I mean, those are really, really good opponents here. And, Nurmagomedov does certainly look like the future. I mean, going out there and finishing Cody Stamann as quickly as he did, Cody's a guy that's really tough to take out. I think the only other guy to finish him, I want to say, was Aljamain Sterling or someone I know is finished Stamann as well in the UFC, just not coming to mind right now. But, some good wins. But he did lose to Raoni Barcelos just a couple fights ago. So that's where it's like, okay, what are we getting here with this fighter? I look at this fight from a betting perspective two different ways. I think if you're going to bet Nurmagomedov, bet him by decision. I don't think Andrade is going to get finished in this fight. I think there could be some better value there than the minus 250. Or if you even slightly like Andrade, I'm with you. I'd take a stab at him at plus 200. This is going to be a close fight. I could see it going to the scorecards, and I could see one of those, potential split decisions here going either way. I don't think it's a slam dunk that Nurmagomedov wins. And I like what you said there about the last name, where it's not like Umar, Habib, or any of these other guys. He has a much different style here. So, people see the last name, they think, okay, automatic grind, decision win. But I don't know about that. So I am going to pick Nurmagomedov to get it done. I think I'll take him by decision, though. I know he finished Cody Stamann in his last fight. And I know a lot of his fights do tend to be finished, like the last time he went to the distance was Justin Scoggins fight. But I really do think Andrade is that durable. And you even look at it here, Petr Yan was a, corner stoppage, Rob Font, second round stoppage, maybe even look at the over in this fight. But I'm going to pick Nurmagomedov, but Andrade is someone to not sleep on. Don't let the age, don't let the, the fact that Nurmagomedov is a little bit bigger in this fight fool you. He is going to be a game opponent in this fight and could potentially pull off the upset, but the pick's going to be Nurmagomedov. Okay, let's keep it moving here. Co-main event, really interesting look at the future here. You can see what the UFC is doing with the matchmaking here. We've got Borello taking on Petrosian, and right now it's the Brazilian, the favorite at minus 190. The comeback on Petrosian plus 160. What are you looking at here as far as a pick between these two up-and-comers?
Borello really excites me, to be honest. I think he has a bright future. I think he'll be ranked anytime and get a top opponent. Maybe he's a few wins away from a title shot. I'm pretty high on him. I mean, he's legit. His first Dana White Contender Series fight, I mean, he came out and he won in a decisive unanimous decision victory, didn't get a contract, came back, and then he said, all right, I'm going to make sure I get my contract. He knocked out Jesse Murray in the first round, made sure he got that contract the second time around. His UFC debut, just as dominant, decisive unanimous decision. Against, someone who's not maybe the best opponent, but I mean, it was his UFC debut. So what are you going to say? So this is going to be a test for him, but it's also a test for Armen Petrosian. I mean, same thing, Dana White Contender Series products. And I don't know. I think the key here is just going to make it a grappling match from Borello. I mean, Petrosian, he's probably the better striker in this fight, but I'm not so sure. I think we haven't really seen enough of either guy to know who's the better striker, but I can probably confidently say that Borello is the better grappler. So I think if he makes this, kind of push him up against the fence, make it a little dirty, get in that clinch, I think he can win this fight. And I think he will, because his fight IQ is pretty good. He knows how he has to win the fight. And we saw that in his last three fights when he needed to win, and he did. So I like him. I think he's got a bright future. Minus 200, I'll probably throw him in a parlay, because I don't know if I want to play that straight up, just because there are some unknowns here in this fight. But I don't know. I like him to win this one, maybe parlaying with Malarkey.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Again, I'm not trying to just be agreeable and make this kind of a boring show here, but I'll tell you the fight that actually really impressed me with Borello is the win over Aaron Jeffrey on the first Contender Series fight. I've known Aaron for a really long time. I've seen him fight live on the regional scene. Aaron is quite the talent, in fact, and I know he lost last weekend, but I know Sean Strickland used Aaron Jeffrey for a very long time when it was one of his main training partners when he was training at Syndicate. So, that was a really dominant win over Jeffrey. And then, like you said, he went out there and got the win right after that. And then even his last fight against Godzi, who was undefeated at the time, that was a good win too. I really like this kid. I think it's one of the, I guess I shouldn't call him a kid. He's 29, but you get what I'm saying, an up and comer. To me, this is a close fight though. Like, I was really impressed with Armin's last performance too. But to me, you got to find those little intangibles here. And for me, it's the fact that he's fighting a guy who's a little bit younger, has got a little bit more MMA experience. I like Borello in this fight to get it done. I too think there's some value on him at -190 and maybe put that in a couple parlays, but I just think he's more well-rounded and I think he's proven it against better opposition. So the pick for me is going to be Borello at -190. I think he gets it done. And I think, again, this was strategically done. The UFC's trying to push this guy a bit. They don't have a lot of, really big up and coming Brazilian guys. This is one of them, I think. So that's why he's getting the co-main event treatment. Okay, main event. Love this fight. It's finally rebooked. The Battle of the Rafaels, Dos Anjos, Fiziev. And right now, the odds makers have Rafael Fiziev at -210, the comeback on Dos Anjos +175. Who are you picking here? And you can't say Rafael. You got to pick a last name.
I'm going to take, I can say RDA. I'll just say it short.
Yeah, RDA.
I'm taking RDA in this one. I'm taking the underdog. Legend versus up-and-comer. Some people say RDA's best days are behind him, and maybe that's true, but he looked really good in his last 2 fights. Paul Felder, pretty good win there. Renato Moicano, pretty good win there. His 4 losses, his last 4, it's not like he's getting beat up by nobodies. I mean, Michael Chiesa, Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington. I mean, these are losses to literally the best of the best. So, I mean, I don't know. It's not like he's looked bad against just these up-and-comers. He hasn't fought that many and lost at many of them. But Rafael Fiziev, he's a very good up-and-comer. You can say a lot about him, but this is a big test for him. Black belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist in RDA. He is just the definition of grind you out, wrestle you out. And another big thing in this fight is it's going to be his first time going to the championship rounds. I mean, if it gets there, this is his first 5-round fight. And, we've seen him kind of slow down in fights, even in 3-round fights, and even lose 3rd rounds in some of his decision wins. So, I mean, this is a big step up against one of the best grapplers in the UFC in a 5-round fight. I mean, if this goes to the 4th and 5th round, RDA has tons of experience in the championship rounds. So I think if we see that 4th or 5th, who knows what we're going to see from Fiziev. I mean, if he's up only 2-1, he might lose 3-2 in those last 2 rounds. So I don't know. I like taking RDA here just as the grappler in with this line on him. If it was a lower line, maybe I'd still take Fiziev, but I don't think he's -210 worthy in a 5-round fight. So until we see him grind out, I mean, if he comes out and just dominates him in all 5 rounds, yeah, I'll be high on him for the future, but we just haven't seen him do that yet. So I'm going to take the stab at the underdog.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. This is a tricky fight for sure with the, again, the experience of RDA, former lightweight champion. The other thing with RDA that we should bring up is that the last time he was knocked out at lightweight was actually when he lost the title to Eddie Alvarez in 2016. So extremely durable. And Fiziev, he's a guy that goes out there and, wants to get it done by knockout. Now, a couple things about Fiziev, because I did speak to him before this fight. Trained at Tiger Muay Thai in Thailand. He's actually one of, I think the coaches there when it comes to the striking. So, I mean, that's one of the best gyms in the world. And then he was training at Killcliff as well. Again, used to be called Sanford. So he's getting to work with guys like Shavkat Rakhmonov and just, Gilbert Burns and so many other really good fighters there. So the camp we know is top tier for Fiziev. The thing is, I know people bring up the fight I know you're referencing was the fight against Bobby Green, where he clearly lost the 3rd round, but he went out the fight after that and knocked out Brad Riddell in the 3rd round, and the cardio didn't seem to be an issue at all. So you're right. 5 rounds does favor RDA just because of the fact that he's had that championship experience, but you also got to factor in that Fiziev's a lot younger here. He's 29 years old. RDA is 37. And the other thing that's a bit of a concern for me with RDA is the lack of activity, right? You look at the Moicano fight he had earlier this year. Is the fight before that was against Paul Felder in 2020. So he hasn't fought that much, and Fiziev has fought far more than that. If you also want to play a little MMA math here, while that was a dominant win over Moicano, and I do think it could have been stopped sooner. I mean, Moicano took a beating in that fight. Fiziev also knocked him out in the 1st round. And that wasn't that long ago. That was in 2020. So I think you see the power here. What it's going to come down to for me is this fight going to stay standing? And if it stays standing, I got to go with the younger guy and the more dynamic guy here in Rafael Fiziev. There's a few fighters in that weight class, Arman Tsarukyan, Gamrot, a few others that sort of have those little things that you see in fights where you think there's something special about them. And I put Fiziev in that category. I think his striking is very tough to prepare for. He hits like a truck. I think we could potentially see a finish here from Fiziev on RDA within the 5 rounds here. -210, yeah, I'd like the line to be a little bit closer here. I do think that, maybe RDA is getting a little bit of disrespect here, but I got to go with the younger guy here and the guy who's been more active and the guy that really outside of one kind of, I don't want to call it a fluke, but, he lost to Mustafayev a few years back. I think he learned his lesson. I think this is going to be Fiziev's coming out party, and I think this is strategically done in the sense that they're putting him in a main event, fighting a former champion in RDA, and I think once, if Fiziev does get this win, it's going to propel him to those, top 5 fights here. So I think it stays standing, and I think Fiziev slowly starts to take over. I think the striking will be pretty even, but you'll see him sort of, land the better shots. RDA is going to fade a little bit, and I think Fiziev's going to do what Moicano should have done, but Moicano, again, very inconsistent. So anyways, I like Fiziev. That's where I'm going here. I totally see your angle, though, on RDA just because of the experience. But to me, it's just he had one really dominant fight against Moicano. The Felder fight was close, but you remember Felder took that on short notice too. So to me, there's more proof that Fiziev is improving every fight, and that's why I'm going to take him. The other thing I'll mention just quickly, they're both about the same size here, 5'8", 71.5-inch reach. Like there's going to be no advantages for RDA in that regard, and Fiziev 10 years younger, more than 10 years younger. So the pick's going to be Fiziev. I think the big question is, can he finish? I think he could maybe look at that 4th or 5th round prop or something finishing RDA, but I'm liking Fiziev in this fight. So that's going to be my pick.
Yeah,
again, some disagreements here.
Yeah, if it does say standing, I definitely like Fiziev there. And I will say his takedown defense has looked really good. I mean, Bobby Green, he only attempted 2 takedowns in that fight, but he didn't land one. So he kept it standing the entire time, and that's how he was able to win. So I mean, yeah, his takedown defense looked really good. So I'll say that, because if RDA can't get this fight down, he's gonna have to strike for 5 rounds with Fiziev, and there's a good chance that in 25 minutes he might get knocked out. So I definitely agree on that angle. So it's a hard one to pick.
There we go. That is our preview for UFC Vegas 58. Make sure you check out my main event video where I go a little bit more in depth on this one. Also, make sure you hit the like button on this video, hit the subscribe button. We do these breakdowns every single week. For myself, for Ben, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week for UFC Long Island. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy the fights. We'll see you guys soon.